Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Road Mapping your Ramadan. Ramadan Kareem to everybody that's watching live. Alhamdulillah. We are joined today by amazing guests with amazing topics. Sister Doureine is a life coach. We're doing hosting of these episodes throughout Shah Ramadan every other day. We've got 15 different topics, and we're super excited to have the incredible, the amazing, the one and only Uzma Naqvi with us, who in her right is a phenomenal person. And it's incredible to have you on the show today, sister.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil, for that intro. Uzma is actually a holistic transformational coach. And she has very kindly agreed to come today and share her knowledge on this amazing topic. So first and foremost, thank you, Neil, and Ramadan Mubarak to all of you. Ramadan Mubarak to you, Uzma. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and Ramadan Mubarak to all the beautiful listeners and to both of you. Thank you so much for having me. Jazakallah khair.
Excellent. So today's topic is he who truly knows himself knows his Lord. I mean, the self-discovery element of this beautiful saying is just second to none. Uzma, what is your take on this very amazing and very, if you think about it, if you don't, it's deep. It's very deep, isn't it?
I don't think it can get deeper than this, subhanallah, because directly it connects you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it tells you that the pathway to your Lord is through yourself. So there is something to ponder over here. There's something for us to think deeply about. So I think it is very, very deep, and I'm so glad that you've picked this topic, and I'm so glad that you've invited me, because this is something that I'm very passionate about, something that I talk about in a lot of depth, something that I teach, taking a year actually. So I don't know how much I'll be able to do justice to this topic in such a short space of time while we're here, but we'll definitely kickstart the conversation. So when it comes to self-discovery, there is so much depth to this, but really what it boils down to is understanding oneself. We are a very complex human being. We have so many aspects to ourselves. And unless we take the time to understand who we are, what we stand for, what triggers us, what's going on the inside, we cannot know the truth that we carry inside of ourselves. And until we know the truth, we cannot authentically connect with God. We can all connect with it. Without connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we would perish. We would cease to exist. So we're all connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no doubt about that. But what this connection is referring to is far deeper and much more spiritual. There's a quote in the Holy Quran in Surah Taha in verse number 7, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah knows the secrets and what is even more hidden. Yeah. And that's something to think about, because we all know that secret is something that you keep inside of you, but you're aware of your secret, right? What's even more hidden than that? What's even deeper than that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to? And we want to think about that. There are things inside of us that even we are not aware of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fully aware of even the hidden parts of us. He knows our makeup and every tiny little detail, our pain, our suffering, our triggers, absolutely everything that is us. He is aware of that. And this is an invitation to us, especially kicking off this topic on the day one of Ramadan. Yeah. It's so fitting that we're talking about this, because this is the process of dissecting who you are, what you came here to be, what you carry on the inside, how this affects how you are and how you display yourself on the outside, how this connects you to your Lord. What are you going to go back with? Your soul is created to be elevated. It is period, that it was created to evolve and to grow. And so when your soul is staggered or stunted in any way, it's not allowed to grow, then we need to see what this opportunity is that it's presenting. Maybe it is in the shape of a pain, of a suffering, but unless we question that, unless we sit with that, unless we really break that down and go deeper into those hidden truths that we carry within ourselves, then we will never really truly authentically connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think it's very, very paramount and important for us to get to know ourselves in a very, very deep way.
And what's a month as well, right? Ramadan is the month for that. It's the month of Allah. It's the month of the Quran. The Quran is what Allah wants to communicate to us. He's put all the things we need to know. Like you said very, very, very well, is that Allah knows what we don't know, right? Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of like when somebody invents something or makes something, only the maker knows what the guide is and how to, you know, we have, like, when we buy something new, we've got to check the guidebook to see how this is working and what should we be doing, what shouldn't we be doing. And for us, that maker is obviously Allah. He knows what works with us. He knows what is the optimum level of balance in our life, and he knows what we should. He shows us the way. He showed us the way through the Quran and through all of the role models, obviously. And I love that you took the ayat from the Quran, because he's actually, you know, I can guarantee you any questions that any of us have about anything to do with our soul, to do with ourselves, to do with how to live, how not to live, what to become, what not to become, and all of that, the in-betweens, is all within the Quran. If only we looked, if only we reflected, right?
Yeah. I think sometimes that's the problem, though. We don't stop and pause and reflect. We spend our lives like hamsters on the wheel. We're constantly on the go, going from task to task or duty to duty. And very rarely we get the opportunity or give ourselves the opportunity to stop and ponder. And sometimes the smallest amount of time, it has the biggest amount of benefit. You know, on our day-to-day basis, we pray 5 times a day. But how do we approach the prayer? Do we just approach the prayer in terms of it's very ritualistic, we just get it over and done with? Or do we give ourselves an extra 30 seconds, a minute, just to stop and connect and to open our senses, to get a bit of inner peace and to ponder, to think about life? That reflection, those few moments, it makes such a big impact, because then you can concentrate on where you are, focus on that moment and be present. And I think that's something that in life we don't do enough as human beings. We're just constantly thinking about the next task, the next thing. And, you know, with the way the world is designed with, you know, with the phones, which are constantly pushing out stuff. I could order something now and it'll be delivered tomorrow. It's a very now centric society. So how do we create a more balanced society? I would say.
Yeah, I mean, beautifully put. And, you know, there's a very scary verse in the Holy Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't become like people who forget Allah, so Allah made them forget themselves.
Oof.
And it goes through my bones when I think about this, because to get to a point where Allah makes you forget yourself, you know, that, because we are all living, and there are many people, there is even that tradition, the hadith that talks about, you know, most people are asleep, they wake up when they die. This is what we're talking about. There's a lot of people, they're still eating, they're still, you know, producing and reproducing, and they're still, you know, doing their life, but they have forgotten themselves. They're asleep, right? And we can very easily fall into that category if we are not careful. And if you're talking about, which is the fact that if we're not awakened, if we are not connected to the now, if we are not able to be present with what we're actually doing and what we're carrying on the inside, and we're just living on the on this surface level life, then we miss out on the depth of what we came here to be, who we are as a being. So I think it's very, very important for us to take, especially, you know, the beauty for us is that the month of Ramadan is something that's just given to us as a gift to take. You know, it's not even something we have to make time for. The time is made for us. There are so many different things within Islam that are so beautifully fitted. And in our day, in the 24 hours, 5 times or 3 times, whichever way you pray, Allah has built in that pause for us. So, you know, a lot of people see Salah as, oh my God, I've got to pray. But if you see it as, I can take a pause from the chaos that's going on around me, and I can really take this time in for myself, it changes the ball game and how you actually look at it and how you connect.
Absolutely. And, you know, I love that both of you mentioned this as well, which is the reflection element of it, because essentially I think that is the muscle that each and every one of us needs to build within us. It is in the Quran in many places, for those who reflect, reflection is a massive, massive part of knowing oneself, of asking yourself these questions that sometimes, what you said, Sister Uzma, that, to awaken that, we need to ask ourselves the difficult questions. We need to go in places within our hearts, within our bodies that we've never been before, or maybe we don't want to ask ourselves. So that would be one of the way to kind of starting to know ourselves. What are my triggers? What is happening? Why am I reacting that way? Why am I behaving that way? Why am I thinking this way? And all of that slowly gets you to kind of getting to know you, getting to really not just being a sort of an automatic sort of autopilot, but really getting to know that, being vulnerable, being super duper honest with yourself. And Sister Uzma, how do we link that now to knowing your Lord?
Well, if you get to a point where you're starting to ponder and question and ask all these important questions about who you are, what this boils down to and where this is actually taking you is to your authenticity, your truth. And that's what we're after. It's integrity. It's being a person of character. And when we get down to, and this is what muhasaba is, when you're actually starting to really think deeper about what you are and who you are and what you bring into the world, and what your legacy is, what you're supposed to be doing. If you're living on that tip of the iceberg, kind of a superficial way, you would never truly figure out yourself, and you will never truly live the life that is purposeful. But if you actually start to ask these questions, and I like one of the words that you said within this, slowly you get to this point, because I think there is this rush about us, because as Neil brother is saying, that we live in a fast-paced world where everything happens yesterday, like it should happen right now. And so we often get very tricked into this phase of everything needs to be done right now. There is no rush. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this life, and we are judged on the way that we strive. He says, I am to my lover the way that he or she thinks of me. And that's a powerful thing to know. If you think of Allah as somebody who can help and support you and conquer your fears and whatever it is you're working on, then he will absolutely do that. It's based on the beliefs that you carry. But if you have a contrary belief, even at a subconscious level that you're unaware of, that you don't really trust the process, there is a bit of a doubt in the back of your head, that will also manifest. You don't get what you are. You don't get what you want. You get who you are on the inside, right? And so I think it connects to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very, because it reveals you, it reveals everything about you, the inner version of who you actually came to be. And when you can connect that version to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the most authentic type of ibadah that you can do. And discovering yourself is ibadah. Actually, when I begin my program, I actually get my clients to read, or read a dua, or even do a 2 rakat salah, to hadiya to some one of the aimas or something, to say that I'm doing this qurbatan ilallah, so that this door opens so wide for me that I'm not somebody who's still lost and bewildered with this, because it's a very difficult task. I have to say, it's not easy to discover yourself. You come up with some naked truths that you would never want to admit to yourself, and to come face to face with those is very difficult unless you have the support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unless you have the belief that he has my back and I'm always able to refer back to him at any point. So it takes you to your authentic self. And that is what Allah is looking for. And I think, sometimes I correlate it to when we die, we're going to go into barzakh, right?
Yeah.
And barzakh is basically a cleansing period where there's a lot of purging and things that need to happen for you to be able to purify enough to get to Jannah. I think this is what the whole process is, like self-discovery, is that purging of what's been covering you, the authentic you, the essence of Allah that is inside of you, the spirit of Allah that he breathed inside of us, that is covered with all the programming, with all the experiences, with all the events, with all the things that happened, with the way that we were treated, with the way that we were parented, with the way that we were taught different things. We are lost in the midst of all of that. And unless we start to uncover that authentic, true version of ourselves is going to always be hiding. But when we find that and connect that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a different type of a connection altogether.
I love that.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a scary place, you know, to kind of stop and reflect. A lot of people avoid it, and that avoidance, they carry all of these burdens, these traumas, these scars that we have. But in terms of encouragement, our religion pushes us towards a moment of reflection, a moment of pondering. If we take the hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi, he says an hour's worth of reflection is equal to 70 years worth of worship. And when we read that hadith, there's many meanings towards it, but on face value, it's about stopping and contemplating. We know that he spent time in the mountain, and he was in the cave, and he would reflect, and he would speak to Jibreel. He would reflect upon himself, on his ummah. He would think about his future and how he's going to bring forth the beautiful religion of Islam. So, you know, we gotta really take them as our role models, and we've got to really look at ourselves and think, why do we see so many other religions? Let's take the Buddhists. We see them meditating, right? We see them in a tranquil pose. We see them meditation, but yet when we go to our centers, when we go to our mosques, say it's on a Amal night, it becomes a bit like a tick list. Yes. You know, let's do this, let's recite that. And there's hardly any engagement with God. We don't actually stop, reflect, and speak to God. I mean, do you think we need to change as a society, as a community?
Oh gosh, yes. I think, you know, this is something that actually, it's a bit of a tragedy. It breaks my heart because of the way that what we are told is like this, you know, we're sent lists and lists and lists of amal, like you said, and it can be really overwhelming. It can be extremely overwhelming, and actually, like, the essence of it is completely missing if you're just like regurgitating what you're being told to just recite without this reflection that we're talking about. And one of the beauties, if you actually look at the scientific effects of that reflective moments, it changes the way that your mind is firing and wiring the neurons inside of it. It actually, there's an effect that happens physically to your mind and to your body, and how you connect and what's actually happening. There are so many changes that are taking place. Literally hundreds and thousands of things are happening inside of your mind when you pause and when you take that moment out. So I think that there is a beauty attached to it. And this connection that you're talking about, I don't know if it's controversial to say, perhaps I should have asked you before saying it, but we're here now, that when you're in a center or when you're even at home, I honestly, I don't encourage like this whole read this surah and read that surah, and it's too much if you don't know what you're doing. I think just take even one ayah of Quran and just sit with it. Just sit with it. And when you close your eyes and allow, you know, ask Allah openly, I'm here because I want to understand this part. Like, it's come to me, it keeps appearing in front of my eyes. I don't know what it means. You are the Lord. You created me. You know my truths, but you know even hidden parts of me that I don't know myself. And you are the one who said these words. I want to understand them. I need tawfiq from you to be able to do that. And I'm here. I'm here to open up. I'm here to allow this information to seep through, and you would be amazed at what your own body, what your own intuition brings up into your mind about the different ideas and thoughts and different things that are going to come up in your mind with the information of what that actually means to you. But you cannot have that if you don't stop and reflect. You have to connect with the heart. And I think it's a crying moment when we don't even invoke the heart when we're praying. We're just using the tongue and we're using the mind, and we're just like blah 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 blah. Night's over before you know it, like, and the heart was left abandoned all that time. And it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked to. The Quran is not revealed to your mind, it was revealed to your heart. And so unless we invoke the heart when we are trying to understand it, we're not going to gather much information. We're not going to really able to reflect in the way that we're talking about.
Yeah, I love what you said, because to be honest, a lot of information, like, we've gone to so many lectures and majalises, and we've gathered all of that information, all of that knowledge, and it's there, it's in our mind. And every time we hear, it's like, oh, I know this, I've heard this before. But the I know part is the two most dangerous words, because as soon as you say, I know, I don't need to hear this again, you've already rejected that. Whereas it's all about, how do I download what's knowledge into my heart? You talked about the heart. How do I download it in a way that I can now, it's in my fibers everywhere, and I'm able to actually, my behaviors are following what I know now, and they say, right, knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is freedom. And you want to be free in becoming the person you want to become. And going back to the du'as and the tick list that we talked about, I mean, reflection starts with understanding, why have these du'as or these amals been prescribed to us in the first place? And what is behind this? What is it that was supposed to be achieved from this? Is it just, like you said, just blah, blah, blah? Or is there a reason behind? Is this wanting to making me become somebody different? Or that the reflection starts even before the amal starts. And it's like, why is it, what is it that I can do? What is it I'm supposed to be doing? What am I connecting with? If there's an array of like a plethora of du'as, and what is the one thing that I can do that I can really connect with, that I can really take away something from, and that can change me as a person, that can be that, that transformational piece to my life that I can become. It's not the quality, it's not the quantity, it is the quality after all, isn't it?
Absolutely. 100%. And sister, I think if we took Ramadan and moments like that are built within our year in a way that we are prescribed certain times that we are told, and it's like a factual information for us, that this is a very, very special time. Every breath you take is a whole different breath. Like, it's not the same way. And so when you can understand that there is something in this month that I ought to grasp, I think and when we reflect that back to ourselves, we all know our weaknesses very well. We all know what we're good at, and we all know what we're not so good at. We all know what we need to refine, and we all know the things that we showcase to the world that are good in us. If we can just, even on this night, this is the first of Ramadan, if we can sit down and think about our character, right? Our character, what we carry. A good character is not something you're born with. It is something that you have to develop over time. You have to work on it. You have to refine it. You have to practice building good character. So you have to really dedicate your consciousness, all of yourself, your whole being, to be able to do that. Because think about any character, right, trait like courage or determination or honesty. It doesn't just appear. You've got to have that sense of self-discipline. You've got to really be able to bring it about. And I want to just part with you. The origin word character is actually quite interesting if we look into the depth of what that means. It comes from a Greek word that is for engraved and mark, like a symbol or an imprint, right? And when we think about that, on a month like this, on a night like this, on a day like this, where we're talking about reflection, and we take this ancient, in the ancient times, they used to take like a character or a symbol, and they used to, like, when they're sending letters to different countries or whatever, they used to put this wax on, and then they used to put this character on it. Yeah. That was the stamp. Right, on the clay or the wax or something. So the original meaning was to stamp an identity onto something. Who is this from? Who is this going to? Almost like a trademark. So when we think about the original meaning of character, to engrave, to imprint, to stamp, this process of building a good character starts with you understanding what is it that you want to engrave on your sense of self. What do you want to stamp? What kind of values, what kind of beliefs, what kind of ways and character traits do you want to have impressed on your sense of self, so that you can go about living your life? If you think about the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even the non-believers knew that he was trustworthy. That was something that was stamped on his sense of self. So we ought to give this a really good deep thought about what we want to change.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring you back from that. What you just said was so powerful when you talked about character and who we want to become. And you also talked about being authentic, your authentic self. Now, you also mentioned something quite interesting at the beginning. And you talked about the spirit of Allah being breathed in us, right? So that, I think, is so important that we come back to that point, especially when it comes to knowing yourself, meaning knowing your Lord. But how do we know your Lord? And how, we've got these 99 beautiful names of Allah that we know, that our kids recite all the time. And, how do we encompass that? How do we behave in that way? How do we bring that out? How do we awaken those divine characters and divine names within us, so that we can imprint that character, so that we can become somebody, trustworthy like the Prophet, or, any other way. So now, yeah.
I love that. I think that is so important to think about, because, this is one of the mistakes that Shaitan made. When we think about the fact that there is a spirit of God inside of us. It's just a few words, but the actual, like, if you really go into that, God is inside of us, right? A bit of God is inside of us, and that makes us very worthy, right? And the fact that he said, I created you guys so that I can be better known, right? So then there are certain characteristics, there are certain personality traits, there are certain divine attributes that are inside of us that are unique to us.
Yeah.
And unless we get to know ourselves, we can't shine those, because we're pretending to be someone we are not, because we are copying someone else. We are trying to be someone else because they are, they've got what we want. And therefore we're chasing to be that person, but we're neglecting what God gave us innately for us to shine that. And that is us connecting our worth to our own self. And these, this is, I was going to say about the mistake that Shaitan made. Shaitan was a very, 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 very pious jinn. And as we all know, like he worshipped God for thousands of years before Adam alayhi salam was created, right? And the blunder and the biggest mistake he made was that when Adam alayhi salam was created and he was in the clay form, Allah did not ask any of the angels or jinns to bow down to him. Allah asked to bow down to Adam alayhi salam after he gave his spirit into Adam, right? So Shaitan became, and he didn't, this is just a thought, like he didn't reflect on that before, when he was just clay, I wasn't asked to bow down to this man, creation. Only after Allah put his breath inside of Adam, he became worthy. He became someone so big that even the jinns who had been worshipping for thousands of years had to bow down. And so we need to take that. We need to understand that this should help you understand your self-worth. Self-worth is really, it's all about knowing that you are innately born with that spirit. That is your self-worth. You have the divine inside of you. It is inherently yours. You can never lose self-worth. You can add to it, or I don't want to say add to it. You can make it, you can discover it more, you can express it, or you can hide it. That's all you can do. But you are worthy innately. You came into the world like that. And when we can understand that, and when we can start to refine ourselves and discover ourselves, that's what we're getting down to. We're getting down to that bit of ourselves that is God.
Yeah. Wow.
And when we shine that out to the world, we are nothing but authentic beings. And when we intertwine that with our heart and the passions that we carry inside of us, we are untouchable. Like, we are literally living our life's purpose.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of your life.
This is exactly, this, what you just said, is what all of us needs to understand. And, when we're putting ourselves down all the time, that, we're not good enough, or all of these thoughts. We're going to have a special session actually on the psychology of Shaitan. We have a guest that's going to talk about the actual psychology of what Shaitan does to us, and all the negative self-talk and all of that. But while we're on the topic here, it's so important to understand that when you're putting yourself down, what you just talked about, self-worth, and that it's there and we're deserving of it, but we may hide it. And when we're putting ourselves that, we're almost kind of, I don't know if I should say this, but we almost kind of putting Allah's creation down in a way. So almost not quite insulting, I don't want to use, but kind of like you're saying that what Allah's created, which is yourself, is not good enough. And that's actually almost blasphemous if you think about it. So it's something that we need to use very carefully. And if those feelings do crop up, they definitely are the waswas of shaitan, and it does need to be dealt with. It does need, and if and look, it's not easy. Like you said, it takes a long time. There is no magic pill. You can't just take something and say tomorrow I'll be fine. We've lived years and years, right? We've lived years and years to come to this point. You can't just undo it within a day. You said, Sister Uzma, you talked about patience, you talked about time, and that's exactly that.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. If we can understand that our talents do not increase our self-worth, and our insecurities do not take away from our self-worth, right? It's just there. It is there from the moment you came into being, because God is inside of you, right? You cannot become less worthy. That's what you're doing. The worth that you have inside of you, you're just hiding it by doing the things that are not right, or sinning, or negatively talking to yourself, or downplaying yourself. You're just covering it. You cannot take that away, because it's God. It's God, right? And so when we can understand that, that's a very powerful knowing, because then you cannot look at yourself and think, not looking after yourself, because the way that we live is the standard that we think we are. It's what we think our worth is. The way that we eat, the way that we sleep, the way that we interact, the way that we hold our relationships, the way that we do everything, the amount of wealth we have, what we live in, and how we live, and how we interact, and everything. It's what we've told ourselves at a subconscious level. This is what I'm worth. And whenever you tell yourself, actually, I promised myself I'm going to go to the gym, or I promised myself I wasn't going to have that slice, and then you end up doing exactly what you promised yourself you wouldn't, it means that you have not understood that you are worthy of that commitment that you've made to yourself. You are worthy of all the commitments that you make to your boss and everyone else in the world, but to yourself, you're like, it's not that important, because you haven't understood the essence that you are carrying inside of you, which is God. I'm going to keep saying that. The universe inside of you. This is what Imam Ali al-Islam talks about. There is a whole universe inside of you. The universe is God, the essence that you carry inside of you, the attributes of Allah that you carry inside of you. Once you get to know those, how can you ever question who you are? Like you can't. You cannot.
Yes. Brother Neil, you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. I've had to join with my phone. Do apologize.
No worries.
Honestly, technical issues on day one, but there we go. It can't be helped at all. SubhanAllah, I love that. The universe is within you, and that journey of self-discovery through this blessed month is something that we need to invest in, and start in on day one with that small reflection. It's, we talk about habitual behavior and making small changes, and this is the month to do that, to create something like this, to maybe start small and then do it consistently throughout the month. And then when you come through the 30 days of the fast, then inshallah something's changed within you. So what advice would you be able to give our wonderful viewers about what small things can they do to invest in themselves, to create the best version of themselves throughout this month, so they can connect to the oneness of God?
Beautiful question. Thank you so much for asking that. We can really make this complex, or we can make it really simple. And I want to make it really simple, because there is too much information out there. It's mind-boggling. Who do you follow? Because every person has something to give you. So my humble advice would be this. In the interest of time, and I can't really break this down as much as I'd like to, but I would say start just by monitoring yourself. Make a ni'ah qurbatan ilallah. This week, I'm going to dedicate, without judgment, without guilt, without shame, without anything imposing further onto myself. I'm gonna monitor who I am. I'm gonna monitor how I think. I'm gonna monitor what language I use for myself and for others in my head and outside. I'm gonna monitor how I sit, who I sit with. I'm gonna monitor what I eat, how I treat myself. Because that is going to showcase how worthy you feel, actually. Without really ever knowing it, we don't really feel we're that worthy. But when you start to monitor for a week, if you can dedicate a week to just start to get conscious about those things that you're unconscious about, the self-awareness in 1 week that you're going to get, hand on heart, come to me if you don't. talk to me if you don't. I will hold you accountable. I will say to you, and whoever's listening here, we've got 10 people listening live. There'll be lots of others watching afterwards. I will bear witness that whoever heard this, whoever ears this landed on, whoever hearts this is landing on, that I said these words with sincerity. And I know that if you actually take this action, life will start to change for you. And it's not a big ask. All I'm saying is ponder on how you are, who you are, right? This will reveal your thoughts. This will reveal your emotion. This will reveal your triggers. This will reveal your relationships, the character traits, the personality type. This deep analysis is super powerful. I mean, obviously, because I teach this, when I do this with someone, there is a strategic way of doing it, very structured way of doing it, and there is a lot of accountability. So it's a faster paced, way of doing it. So invest in yourself and do that beyond going forward. But I'm just saying, at the moment, you can hold accountability for your own self.
Yeah.
Because what you will get to know is that obviously a lot of people saying this, you are not your thoughts. That's what you're going to find. You are not your emotions. That's what you're going to find. So who is observing your thoughts? Who is saying, oh, I just thought about that? Who said that thing to myself? Who is that person?
Yeah.
That is your consciousness. That is who you truly are. That is your essence. There is this, there is God. He is everywhere. And his spirit was given to us. And that spirit is in our souls, and our soul is in our hearts, and our hearts are in our bodies, and every single thing matters. Our body matters, our heart matters, our emotions matter, our how we live and how we connect to God. All of this is very trailed. It's a hierarchical way of getting to God. So we have to wake up about ourselves. That's what I would advise.
That's beautiful, beautiful. I think monitoring yourself, Sister Uzma, that is such a precious tip, precious advice that you've given, because like I said before, we're on autopilot. We don't monitor ourselves. That's why we are where we are some of the time.
Yeah.
And you talked about habitual change, Brother Neil, and it's like, it's only when you will monitor yourself that you will see what your habits have been, as opposed to what you want your habits to be, because you create your habits and then your habits create you. And so although you're not your thoughts, although you're not your habits, you kind of start embodying that, encompassing that, because you're just kind of letting those control you. And monitoring, Sister Uzma, is definitely an amazing thing to do. So how can this be monitored? So would you say gratitude journal? What would you say?
So I wouldn't make it vague like this. If you are doing it, let's say you're this month, you want to bring about a change, right? And most of us know, like generically, we know what we need to change, like the downfalls that we have, because they play on our mind a lot. Like we're guilty. We are guilty. Our conscience is not dead. We're still Muslims. We are still awakened to some extent. So we have that knocking on our back of our conscience that says, that's not a good idea. I shouldn't be involved in this. That thing, the thing that as I'm saying this, it's popping up in your head, that thing. Like that thing, pin it. And you can just like get an A4 piece of paper and write down thoughts, behaviors, actions, triggers, whatever. Like there's a list of things that you're actually going to start to monitor. How you're feeling about it. What are the sensations that came up on your body? What are the thoughts that came up? What are the words that came up? How did you actually react? How did you deal with this? This is super powerful. Like, when you actually start to monitor, but because when you're journaling, it's very vague. It's like you can write a lot of your thoughts and a lot is coming out, but it's not broken down enough. It's not dissected enough. But if you can actually get one thing, let's say in this Ramadan, I commit to giving up anger. I'm not a very angry person, so that's not my trait. I'm just giving that as an example, that if that was my thing, I would grab the bull by its horns and I will say, that's who I'm tackling this month. And then I would really break it down and I would monitor every time it's happened, every situation that occurred when it happened, because that's going to give you your triggers. And by the way, your triggers, your pain, your suffering, your anger, anything that you're dealing with, if you switch the perspective and look at it in a different way, this is nothing but your soul presenting you with yet another opportunity to wake up. Right? So instead of seeing it as, oh my God, I failed yet again. Oh, I feel like that again. Say,
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, my soul is trying to wake me up yet again. How do I make the best of this opportunity? How do I wake up to this opportunity so that I can actually start to pivot? And when you monitor like that, even in 1 week, guaranteed results, guaranteed.
And it doesn't have to be a big change, right? It doesn't have to be something massive.
Pick one thing. I made this acronym. Just randomly sat one day. I was meditating on like how do we do this, like, you know, everybody talks, that James Clear talks a lot about like small changes in habits and all of that.
Yeah.
So I took the acronym DEEN, DEEN, and I was like, okay, how do we now create this? Because in DEEN, especially in this month, we want to really kind of reflect on that. The D, what one thing will you dedicate yourself to this whole month or this whole week? One thing you're dedicating yourself to. The one thing that the kind of effort, the E for the effort that you are going to put in. So that effort could actually be the monitoring, that I'm going to really monitor. I'm genuinely, authentically, wholeheartedly, qurbatan ilallah, monitoring this one trait that I'm dedicated to understanding. The energy, because your energy is sacred. It is a God-given gift to you. You don't have like ton of it. You have a certain amount of it each day. And most of us are dishing it out willy-nilly to any Tom, Dick, and Harry. Don't do that. Don't do that, because it is so sacred to you. What you are wasting away is the life that you have. So don't waste it away. Think about your energy. What are you going to invest your energy in? Who are you going to invest your energy in? And like seeing that, how that's going to make a difference to my life. And then the N is the tracking progress, so the new thing that's happening. So the new that you're bringing in, or the new that you're going to add to this. So basically, you're just tracking the new. So if you can keep that in mind, the deen, dedication, effort, energy, and the new or the progress, it will honestly, you will be able to monitor a lot of yourself.
That's beautiful. Even to come up with an acronym like that, the state that you were in, you were meditating, you were thinking about it, you gave yourself time of reflection and pausing, and you come up with something as amazing as that. You see, dear viewers, that's an example of when you stop and pause. That's an example when you can reflect. You can be able to dissect certain things and come up with amazing focused topics like Sister Uzma has just done there. So that moment of clarity, that moment of peace, that moment of inner self is so important. I'll quote Bruce Lee: we should be like water, right? So that's one of the most amazing quotes for him. Of course, water is one of the strongest elements in this world. It's very flexible, it's adaptable. If it comes across an obstacle, it will just move around it. And then it can be still and very tranquil and clear. But also, like us, sometimes we can be like waterfalls, gushing, you know, really uncontrolled. So that, though, what we need to get to is a point of tranquility, of stillness, understanding that within us, you're looking at around about 60-70% water that's within us ourselves. So by pausing and stopping and reflecting, we can be like water, and we can approach ourselves in that manner and that way. And applying yourself within this blessed month, doing something small each day, taking a few moments to stop and reflect, to input that journey of self. Understanding yourself is to understand your Lord. This is what the topic is today. And that's where we're trying to get to. So it could be something that you do that is personal to you, not personal to me. So I may have a very random conversation with God in my own tongue, in my own way. You might connect to Dua Kamal, you might connect to Dua Tawassul, or you might like to do this particular amal, but do what is personal to you. Don't be determined by what other people are showing you to do or telling you to do. We spend most of our lives trying to please people when we don't spend enough time pleasing ourselves. And this is with our connection with God as well. I mean, I'll hand it over to you, sisters. I can rattle on about this for too long, but that's just my personal opinion.
I think it's so beautiful. And you know, if we don't think about that, I love what you're saying. It's so important to understand that it's actually deep down what it boils down to, and what we're actually trying to get is connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we get so caught up in the rituals, it's a lip service. We're not even actually doing justice to the du'as that we're actually reading. A lot of the times we're just reading the Arabic version, and we don't know Arabic if you're not an Arab. And so I think that if you can have that as an umbrella of what you're trying to achieve this month, It's the connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And generally speaking, like when we, sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So generally speaking, when I've been talking about character traits and personality types and all of that, if you are going to monitor yourself, if you are going to look at the, the acronym Deen or whatever, think about all the things that you really want in your life, the level of health and fitness you want to enjoy, the quality of relationships that you want to have, the experiences and adventures that you want to actually experience in your life, the level of financial abundance that you want to have, the fulfilling career that you want to create in your life, the material things that you want, the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you want, the emotional states that you want to experience on an ongoing basis. Just think about all of those things, right? And I just want you to ask yourself the question, what kind of a person achieves those things? Right? What kind of a person has a life like that? And are you that person? Who are you? What is it that you don't have? What are you as a person overall? Right? And what kind of a person do you want to be? A lot of people don't even have clarity of what they want to be. Your character, your personality trait is a total sum of what you're displaying out to the world. Your inner nature, and this includes everything that makes you you, your behaviors, your thoughts, your ideas, your motives, your intuitions, your judgments, your temperaments, your tastes, your tendencies, absolutely everything. It's you, right? Yeah. If you don't understand these things, this is coloring your identity. This is how you're appearing to the world. It is the balance of these components that are going to set you apart from the world and bring you back to your unique self, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You carry
and it doesn't really matter if you're thinking in your head right now, but you know what, this is not for me, I'm too far away from that, I'm just no, you have to understand that we all have to start somewhere. The first step is to accepting that where you are is exactly where you're supposed to be, and it's okay as long as you're making a start. As long there's nothing, it's never too late for anything ever. That's why we have such a, we have a lifetime. This is the reason we have a lifetime. Otherwise, if a 10-year-old would think that, what would he do at the age of 50? It's never too late. There is never a state in your heart where you should feel that this is not for me. It's too easily said than done, because accepting yourself and accepting that that's fine. That acceptance is the first step to changing. That, okay, I've now accepted, this is who I am, this is where I've reached, but that's fine. What can I do now? How can I bounce forward? Or do I just want to stay here and stagnate? And, what doesn't grow dies eventually, right? So how can I make this? Don't despair. Don't feel hopeless and think, I'm too far away from the truth. There is no truth. It's your truth. It's your uniqueness. It's your, as Sister Uzma said, you've got that spirit, that divinity within you, but you've also got you within that as well. That's what makes you unique. And it doesn't really matter where you start, as long as you start.
100%.
Oh, definitely not. It's that quote, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. But let's take it one step further. That first step has to happen by you. You have to decide to take that first step. You have to decide to put those trainers on and go to the gym. You have to decide to put the key in the door, to open the door so you can move through it. You have to decide to put that jacket on. You have to decide to get out of your bed in the morning. It all starts with you. So that journey of 1,000 miles, of a lifetime of discovery, it's okay. But you've got to make that choice and decision. Yes, people like us, life coaches, can help you and push you in the right direction. But you know what? We're not there with you 24/7. We're not there pushing you, telling you to get up. You have to make that conscious decision and that conscious choice. Now, on day one of Shahr Ramadan, these are the kind of things that we're talking about. This is the kind of things that we're saying to you. Try to take that first step towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah says beautifully, you take one step towards me and I'll take 10 towards you. So why not do it today? Today is the first day of Shahr Ramadan. Today is the day that you can embellish this and become one of the amazing attributes of the 99 names of Allah Azza wa Jal. You can be Kareem, you can be Hakeem, you can be Rahman, you can do whatever you want. Honestly, you're more capable than you even know. So just keep on believing in yourself and keep on pushing. Now is the time to make that beautiful change within yourself.
And Sister Uzma, can you just talk to us a little bit about, Allah says that I am closer to you than your jugular vein. Now, isn't that beautiful?
Amazing. Absolutely.
Isn't that like mind-blowingly beautiful?
Yeah.
It's stunning, and it connects very much to what I've been talking about already. That when we're saying that there is the Spirit of God, and that's been encapsulated in your soul, and your soul's been encapsulated in your heart, and then your heart is encapsulated inside of your body, and so there is this whole structural way of reconnecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, your jugular vein, where you're actually like living with what is pumping the blood from the heart, which is connecting you to the world that you're actually living in physicality, to the other side is this is the connection. But Allah is already in your heart. Allah is, the sanctuary is built for him. It shouldn't have anything or anyone else in there. And so when you can understand that really the truth of you, the authentic bit of you is truly connected to God already, it has the Spirit of God inside of it already, then you understand that this is what this is talking about, that he is so close to you that you couldn't even fathom. And when people question and doubt themselves, like, I don't really know, if you think about two different people trying to pray for like something that they really desperately want, right? Let's say me and Sister Doureine are asking for the same thing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I sit in the mosque and you sit in the mosque, we're probably side by side, right? And I'm praying and I'm saying, I really, really, really need this, God. I need this and all of this. But you know what? There is something in my subconscious, not even something I'm aware of, but subconscious, deep inside. It's like, I've said it now, but I don't really know. We'll just leave it. I don't really know. But then Sister Doureine prays and she says, I've said it and it's sealed. I am no longer attached to the outcome, but I know I've said what I needed to say, and I know it's been heard.
Oof, powerful.
Wow.
The end.
Wow.
Oof.
It is no longer my problem to deal with. I have handed it to the best of handlers. When we say Allah is the best of, we plan, he plans, Allah is indeed the best of planners, it's so easy to say this, it slips out of our mouths. We read it on statuses everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Living that in your life is a whole different ballgame, because in this you have to live this. You have to say tawakkul is at a high, to the point where I am not attached to the outcome, but I believe so deeply and with such conviction that there is nothing that will shake this conviction in my life.
SubhanAllah.
And that is how close he is to you.
Yes. And did you know, I didn't know this, but the jugular vein actually returns blood from your brain back to your heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is what it does.
Yeah.
Man, I had no idea until I looked into it, and I was like, to your heart, he brings it back to your heart. For me, that's like, I mean, this was in the Quran like thousands of years ago. So, it's knowledge we couldn't have known until recently. So it's just so miraculous. We are just such miracles. We are just such miracles. If only we treated ourselves and each other as miracles.
Alhamdulillah. So we're coming into the end of the show. We were about 53 minutes into the show. Sister Uzma, just some humble tips and advice on day one of Shahr Ramadan that you can give our viewers so they can benefit, inshallah, and help them to kind of go through that journey of self-discovery.
Sure. So I will just reiterate what I said earlier. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to analyze, to deeply over, like, think about you and yourself. So get yourself a journal. That is the Ramadan journal. It doesn't have anything else, and you're not putting like random stuff in there. It is to do with self-development, self-actualization, and mark it today's date. And whatever, if you've been taking notes, or if you want to re-listen, take some notes, or if you want to get notes from other places, whatever. When you get something that pulls at your heartstring, that's for you. There was a hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that I often quote, and I'm going to paraphrase and just in English. He says there are these things called nafahat. Nafahat are these clouds of opportunities that come and they hover over your head just for a short space of time. If you're an awakened individual, you will grab them with both hands. If you're asleep, you won't even know it came. Don't be a sleep person, be an awakened individual. You didn't hear any of this by coincidence. It came to you because it was for you. You were invited to be here, so take advantage of it. Monitor yourself. That's my biggest advice I'm going to give for this month. Take the first week, second week, third week, just keep monitoring yourself. You'll see the progress you're making anyway. And the one thing, commit to one thing that you're going to dedicate to changing, and one thing that you're going to add. One thing you're removing, one thing you're adding. That's all you need, brothers and sisters. That's all you need. And at the core of all this, last words, the core of all this, you are looking for nothing other than connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala authentically. Don't exert yourself. Don't exhaust yourself that way. Connect. Talk to him. Like wholeheartedly. That's what he wants.
So you said monitor, you said analyze, you said write it down, today's date, and connect to Allah. That should be the aim that you're going towards.
Yes.
Correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as Brother Neil said earlier, it's a journey of 1,000 miles. Take the first step. Just take that first step. There's nothing that's going to break procrastination, fear, than just making that first step, that action.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sister Uzma. This has been so enlightening. What an amazing conversation. It's just so nice to have people within our community and within our, our environment that we can have these conversations with. These are very important conversations that we don't always have opportunities to speak with our loved ones, maybe, or our friends. But these are the conversations that we can have with Sister Uzma or Brother Neil, and life coaches, and surround yourself with people who will be able to awaken, enlighten, and help each other and be each other's mirrors.
Inshallah. Sister Uzma, thank you so much for joining us on our first episode. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Inshallah, shower you with his bounties on these blessed days and nights of Shahr Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. Dear viewers, we will be back on Saturday, inshallah. We're very much looking forward to hosting Brother Zuhaib, and we're going to be talking about fitness, inshallah ta'ala. Please do like and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get, make sure you click that notification button so you get all alerts for new content, inshallah. We will be back on Saturday at 11 a.m. live, but this particular show, this episode, will be hosted and left on our playlist, inshallah. We'll see you then. Thank you for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you.